Lachie Neale is high up on the menu already, Caro.
So he had dinner with Ross Lyon last night. My understanding is that Lenny Hayes, the footy boss, was there too. I think there's probably a determination from St Kilda and Ross Lyon that he doesn't want this to be seen as a Ross and Lachie show. This is a St Kilda show because they do have dinner every time Lachie's in Melbourne. But Lee, I just find it intriguing as to why Lachie Neale wants to leave Brisbane. Now, at the start of the year, everyone assumed if he left, it would be to go back to Perth because a father would want to be with his kids. Lachie Neale doesn't want to go back to Perth. I think he's said to friends that he just thinks it would be a bit of a media circus if he did. It's odd because, you would think you would want to be near your kids. And Jake Nile wrote a piece the other day explaining about the geographical, and Luke Hodge talked about this on Agenda Setters, the geographical closeness with his two parents, one around Bordertown and one in the Western District. Again, it's hardly, around the corner from Melbourne, but there we are. Collingwood and St Kilda have emerged as suitors, and I find that quite odd.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to sort of go back to how this all started. I mean, his life, in a sense, got turned upside down over the summer. Marriage breakup, and his wife and children went back to Perth. So that was the scenario that was presented back in February, March, and the thought that, okay, Lachie will play out the season, and then where's my life need me to be? And that's his own motivations, I suppose. So the thought was, okay, if he left Brisbane, he'd go back to Perth. But it's funny, when the door is opened to potentially leaving, then the other clubs that might want Lachie's services jump in the gap in the door. And I think that's what's happened, to be honest. So all of a sudden now, there's a lot of clubs. Well, if he might leave, can we convince him to come to us? Now, I'm only hypothesising. I suspect Lachie doesn't know where this will eventually end. Will he actually stay in Brisbane, for instance? It might be that he can get a lot more money at another club, a 3-year contract, from 33 years to 36 years.
At a time when he's going to need money.
Well, all that stuff,
expensive.
It's late in his career, all that stuff. He's obviously had the marriage breakup and all that. So I think the door got open to him shifting, so everyone has just jumped in the door and put their foot in. And so, and to be honest, I think Lachie's like most high performers. He's probably got a big ego. I think he likes being feted. Most of us do. You like being given options. So it'll be interesting to see what I'm not comfortable it's become so public. I mean,
exactly.
I know what happens, but I know what happens, and people like yourself and the people in that behind the scenes media area that dig into what the player managers tell them all what's going on, all that kind of stuff. It's no big deal. I guess it's public, but you do think to yourself, like for instance, I would know for certain. No, I shouldn't say certain because I don't know, but Chris Fagan would be talking to players or two from other clubs that the list management people might be working on to get to the Lions. Like, it happens, but you never hear about it, as you shouldn't. I know which you can't keep some of these things secret, but I think these things are better said, done behind the scenes. But unfortunately, this one's about as public as you can be.
Well, Ross Lyon addressed that and what he thought was going to be a confidential dinner at his press conference a few days ago. Let's have a listen to what the St Kilda senior coach said.
Our dinners tend to remain confidential, so I know Lachie and I didn't talk about it, so that talks to other people with less integrity, but that's okay, but I'll leave it at that.
Now, I think he's talking about Lachie Neale's manager, Tom Petroro, and I'm not saying that Tom Petroro leaked that story, but I think that's who Ross Lyon was talking about.
Stinging criticism if it is.
And it did emerge that it was the Neale's management who contacted Ross Lyon when a few weeks ago when the Saints were up at Darwin playing the Gold Coast. And that was when Lachie's, interest. And, I don't know why Tom Petroro needed to ring Ross Lyon because Ross catches up with Lachie all the time because they've remained close since their Freo days, even though Lachie did leave Ross and go and play with another club. But I don't think he was thrilled. Listening to that, I don't think he was thrilled that it had got out. And it was just interesting that the Neale camp contacted Ross. Now, Lachie Neale's having a great season, a bit like Zach Butters, leading the BNF.
Yep.
Has
not affecting their form one iota.
Played with utter professionalism and has apparently, installed a gym in his house, has, leading a really clean life, blah, blah, blah. I'm still with, and Chris Fagan has said all the right things. But when Chris Fagan went on breakfast radio, I think on SEN about 6 weeks ago, and said it would be a bit of a head scratcher for Lachie to leave Brisbane and not go to West Coast or Fremantle, I think that view is shared by a few people at Brisbane. It's a head scratcher for me too, to be honest. I mean, I think he would be great for St Kilda. And Luke Hodge talked about the players he would help, the midfielders he would help, and the on-field coaching and the inspiration he would be. He's a very individualistic sort of player, but and it might mean that someone like Nazire would stay if Lachie Neale was there. Ditto Collingwood, I guess, but I still think it would be an unusual decision.
Only the money. I suspect the only reason he would leave the Lions is to go to a club because you might be getting him an extra $500,000, which is a bit like why Tom DeConey went to St Kilda, for instance. Every now and again, and Zach Bailey, who knows, the same thing might apply. If you can get that kind of extra at another club, then I suspect late in your career, as it is with Lachie, you might say, I'm going to take the money.
We need to take a break. Straight to your calls on the other side of this, 133 693. It is Lachie Neale's weekend in Melbourne. Ironically, the Lions will play in Perth for the first time this year in a fortnight against the West Coast Eagles. Obviously, he's been back to Perth to see his kids throughout the season. The Lions have already had a couple of buys. I wonder whether in a fortnight that will become a bit of a circus with the Lions actually being in Perth to play for the first time this season. You don't think so?
Oh, no, I'm just sort of going... I'm surprised. Look, I'm not making any judgment on Lachie Neale. It just seems strange that your kids at that age, I'm surprised that you wouldn't want to be near them. And if it is true that the deterrent is the media circus, I don't buy that.
I thought I'd talk a little bit about the concussion issue, which is it's like a dark cloud hanging over all contact sports, to be honest. I mean, it's the evolution of it, the knowledge of it. I mean, you think of it over the decades. I mean, back in the 70s, 80s, if you could stand up, you stayed on. Simple as that, really. You're either unconscious or you stayed on the field. And then eventually, in the 1990 grand final, if you remember, Gavin Brown got knocked out at quarter time, and eventually the club doctor allowed him to come back onto the field in about an hour's time, halfway through the third quarter. And we got to where it was this last couple of nights, where a player got a little bit of a knock that was seen, not observed so much by the club doctors at the ground, but maybe on the arc, where they were a little bit affected, so they come off the ground to be checked. So I mean, the evolution of it has been massive. The thing that always hits me, and there's two things going on in our game, I reckon, that are in direct conflict when it comes to danger of the sport and the risk of getting head knocks. One is the speed and movement of the game is become quicker and quicker and quicker. Part of that is the conditioning process, but part of it, multiple interchange. And this year, the sport allowed to go to 5 interchange. So theoretically, 23 players are working through the 18 on the field. So the speed of the game, to me, to my eyes, and I love it, to be honest, it's exhilarating, the speed at which the game is played. But you're also trying to minimise high head knocks and concussions. So all the rules and regulations that are coming into the game, that have come into the game, to make the game that little bit safer. So you've got no deliberate rough stuff now, I reckon. I can't remember the last time someone has deliberately done anything to an opposition player, but carelessly, that is now suspendable, and you get the odd high contact. But these two things to me are in direct conflict because the speed of the game is quicker. The players are bigger, stronger, more powerful. Incidental contact now is more dangerous when I played. I'm convinced of that. So you've kind of got these two factors in direct competition. If someone said to me, if I was in a court of law and it's a game done everything they can to make the game safer, I'd say no. The game allowed multiple interchange. They allow this extra energy on the field, which means incidental, careless contact at most is happening quite regularly. Players are being removed from the game. Obviously now they wouldn't have even thought about it 2 generations ago, but the speed of the game and that's great, but that's in conflict to making the game safer. And it always hits me whenever it comes up and it's discussed, there's litigation going on. You know, the duty of care sort of umbrella is what the game has to be, and that's changed over the generations, over the decades. We know that, but even now, as I say, the speed of the game is quicker, and it's more dangerous, and blokes just run into each other at high speed.
At a time when they're mandating, aren't they, non-contact training periods in the pre-season?
Correct.
As well, which I don't think the coaches are thrilled about.
I must admit, in my whole time, I mean, different to you as I know, but in my time around footy, I've never seen anyone getting concussed at training. Surely has to be really rare, doesn't it?
You hear a few over pre-season with
at match practice. In match practice, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. The game simply doesn't slow down anymore.
It's a strong point, Lee. I mean, you're absolutely right, because it is the speed and the intensity.
Yeah.
And the injuries that are happening as a result, particularly younger players who are coming in clearly ill-prepared for what they're anticipating at the elite level of the game, is extraordinary. And yet all these rules are making the game safer at a time when...
But the other rules are making the game faster. The stand rule, all the other rules have come in to make the game quicker, and we love it because the spectacle is improved, but it does make
Would you lessen rotations? Interchange
Well,
rotations?
this is the balance between you take the speed off the game, that's bad, but it might make the game a bit more fatigue in the game, might make the game a bit safer.
We no longer see or say the sting's gone out of the game.
Not
It's
anymore.
just helter-skelter
Just keeps going.
from go to woe.